Hi everyone, I'm Kirsten Davidson, registered psychotherapist and your host and creator of my wellness podcast, Mind the Gaps. Surrendering our typical ways of looking at life to step out of our comfort zone and into our growth zone. Welcome to episode number 12, Olympic State of Mind, where we're joined by my good friend and Paralympic athlete, Austin Smeenk. Here, we'll get a look inside the mind of an elite athlete during peak performance as Austin shares his wisdom on transforming obstacles into opportunities by prioritizing his mental and physical well-being. For all things Mind the Gaps, you can find me on Instagram at kirsten.davidson. I'm happy to answer every single one of your questions, comments, or feedback on the show, and most of all, I'm happy to have you as part of the Mind the Gaps community. If you're interested in booking a therapy session with me, please feel invited to email me at kirsten@mindthegaps.co. You can also schedule a session online through the link found on all of my social media platforms. Our guest, Austin, is a high-performance athlete who's represented Team Canada in the most recent 2 Paralympics and 5 World Championships. He competes in the para-athletic sport of wheelchair racing. He was born with a physical handicap that's known to specialists as lower motor neuron impairment, although his description of it, emphasis on the fact that this is his description, not mine, is walking like a penguin with a bright and cheery attitude. Despite Austin having physical differences, he's never thought of himself as having physical limitations, although he has told me that he's humbled by carrying hot bowls of soup, and he's accepted that he won't be making a soccer team anytime soon. Austin lives his life with an "of course I can" mindset, similar to what was described in the Mind the Gaps episode number 5 on Blue Zone Living. Austin is currently traveling abroad as he hones his skills in preparation for the upcoming Paralympic Games this summer in Paris, France, and I had the pleasure of interviewing Austin virtually from Paris for this episode. I've had the pleasure of knowing Austin since we were in high school, and I got to know him even better when he started dating one of my best friends named Celine, who he is now engaged to. Insane how time flies, and I couldn't be happier for them both. Over the past few years, Austin and I have shared in our passion for self-improvement through books, quotes, deep chats, celebrating each other's wins, and for Austin, his literal wins by breaking world records in wheelchair racing. After we recorded this episode, I received a message from Austin saying that he wanted to add a few thoughts to the episode, with a voice note testimony attached that brought a tear to my eye. I figured there was no better way to kick off today's show than with Austin's kind words.
As a big fan of the show and close friend to Kirsten, I have recently let her know that I was re-listening to many of the episodes because I was curious about what I didn't absorb the first time around. I let her know that I was literally minding my gaps. Minding your gaps is something that elite athletes do every single day. We look at what our areas of weakness are, and then we strive to improve upon them. We live in our growth zone, and if we don't, it's almost certain that we will not improve and we will not be an elite athlete for long. Amidst the process of qualifying for the upcoming Paralympics, I managed to break 2 world records, and the little boy in me is very proud. But the elite performer in me thinks there's still room to be better. Whatever's important to you is what matters most. I wrote down in a journal of mine that I am on this rock and I don't care what you think, I'm going to be the best wheelchair racer in the whole world, because I believe I can be. From there, it became a matter of planning and overcoming my current weaknesses in order to be better in the future. This applies equally to anything you want to do in life. Whether or not it's being on the podium at the upcoming Paralympic Games, or sailing across the ocean like my sister Olivia did, or growing a business into an empire like my sister Taylor is currently doing, identifying what our gaps are and then working towards closing them is only going to help us perpetually improve and be excellent in the long run. I hope we're all wise enough to know that having an open mind is like having an open road, and if you go down the wrong path, you will have enough space to turn around. Meanwhile, having a narrow mind will leave you screwed because you won't have enough space to do so. When it comes to sport and approaching new challenges, nothing is more powerful than win or learn. I think that by maintaining a sense of appreciation for what didn't work, we will always be better off than not knowing if we never tried. This comes to giving gratitude for pain and knowing that through your mistakes, you learn something and that they all belong in the journey. Compete with yourself and no one else. Be the best you can be. Do the things that are in your control and work towards closing your gaps. At least be mindful of them, so if you've fallen down before, you know not to trip over the same obstacle twice. When moving towards a goal, do the things that help you do the thing. If that means seeking help in an area you don't have full understanding, then that's the right decision for you. Apply all of it and practice it. Mind the Gaps is not only a podcast, but a mindset, one that we should all work towards carrying in our everyday life. Part of being a high-performance athlete is surrounding yourself with high-performance people. For me, that team looks like a sports medicine doctor, an exercise physiologist, a nutritionist or dietitian, a strength and conditioning coach, a physiotherapist, a massage therapist, a chiropractor, my track coach Jeff Harris, who also used to be an Olympic athlete and competed in the 800 meters in the 2012 London Games, as well as the infamous sports psychologist. The sports psychologist is one of the most crucial people on the team because they ensure that the train stays on the tracks and that nothing gets derailed. I don't want to ramble on for too long, but I think that everybody could benefit from speaking to a psychologist in some regard. If you haven't already, I think it would be very beneficial to not only take notes when listening to this podcast, but also if you think it could help you move towards your goals, even if that is to have a better relationship with your partner, maybe consider sending Kirsten an email and getting in for a private session with her. I'm sure you wouldn't regret it. I don't regret any conversations I have with my psychologist and really believe everybody would benefit from it as well. Thank you very much for having me on, Kirsten. And I appreciate your brilliance in the delivery of this content, which is so aligned with elevating ourselves through the choices we make and the actions we take. I hope you are also all enjoying this podcast as much as I am and share my appreciation for perpetual growth and excellence. All elite athletes must have an elite mindset, and it begins between the ears. We're capable of whatever we set our mind to, as long as we're willing to leave the platform of comfort behind and remain curious as we step on the growth train. Remember to seek answers for your questions and to walk into each situation with the open hands of love, not the closed fists of fear. Enjoy the upcoming Olympic and Paralympic Games this summer as Canada's and the world's best athletes do their best on the world's biggest platform. Keep your minds open and be willing to do the work. I promise the results are worth the energy. Don't be a know-it-all, and one more time, just because it's so fun to say, mind the gaps.
Hello, Austin. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
I'd love if we could start off by you sharing how you first got introduced to wheelchair racing and how this led to your placement on Team Canada in the Paralympics.
For sure. Growing up with a physical disability has a certain notion that I'm not capable of doing as much as somebody else, but there's also this really cool learning that happened from me understanding that, I'm not going to walk home from school because I don't live super close and it's not in the cards. But if you can't change it, then change the way you think about it. And it's just okay, I can't walk home from school, but I get to ride a bike home. And you can change the narrative for yourself so that what you're doing isn't just a substitution, but a solution. You find a way. It teaches one thing being disabled teaches, or being born with a physical handicap, I should say, is the more politically correct way of describing individuals these days. It drives adaptability, drives adaptation. It's okay, can't do it this way, no problem, I'll figure it out another way. Disabled people waste no time on trying the next thing. They don't sulk that it didn't work. They're just next. The reason that I'm doing the things I'm doing and think the way I think is life is trying new things. And if what you tried out didn't work, then try something else.
I love that. And changing the narrative from I can't do something to I get to do something, right? You get to ride a bike home, you get to participate in the Paralympics. I mean, everyone who I share your story with has the same initial reaction of, wow, what a way to translate that pain into growth, the pain into something to be so proud of, right? And then it's not It's not painful at all, right? I'm sure there's just all pride for you now.
Totally, totally. So when I was about 7 years old, I tried wheelchair track for the first time and I had already been doing other adaptive sports. I was playing sledge hockey and doing wheelchair basketball as well. And then I continued to do all these sports for many years. And it was around 2012 that I had a bit of a growth spurt and actually went to my first national championships, which is also happened to be the Olympic trials for the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games.
Hmm.
So this was my first time getting on a plane for anything sport related. And I flew to Calgary where they held the trials and I competed very well. I think I rose to the occasion, and at that point, I beat all of my Canadian domestic competitors and actually qualified for the 2012 Paralympic Games that were going to be in London in a few months.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was quite an experience. And because I was still a minor, they had to call my parents first and let them know that I had made the team. And then they put me on a three-way call and said, like, you've made the team with your parents' permission. What do you want to do? And then I asked, my coaches and said, what do you think? And they said, like, I think if we have a world championship next year, this is your first time on a plane. Maybe if we park that for this year, you'll have a long career in this sport. So at that time, I made the decision that it was best to forego the opportunity to jump right into the fire and have my, first time out of the country for sports be
Mhm.
for a Paralympic or Paralympics. And yeah, my coaches and I sat down later that weekend and said, like, okay, I think if this is something you want to do, then like we should go full steam ahead at it. And at that point, I stopped playing sledge hockey to protect my body and not have risk for injury because it's a contact sport, and also dropped wheelchair basketball as well because I was clearly moving down the path of high performance wheelchair racing.
That's amazing. I didn't even know that you were that young in that type of high performance category.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Being a part of the Cruisers sports, they had already sent athletes to Paralympics in past, and I had been around to witness, these athletes train hard and train at the highest level in order to qualify and prepare to try and win medals for Team Canada at the Paralympics. So I was already immersed in it a little bit, and I kind of just like saw that and saw that that could be a potential for me as well. And then I was like, just jumped in with 2 feet and a wheelchair, so to say.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. What a story. And now you haven't looked back.
Yeah, it's been an evolution.
Austin is currently ranked second in the world in the 100-meter wheelchair racing event, which he also holds the Canadian and All-America's records in. Austin has also held the national and America's record in the 200-meter race since 2019. He's the current world record holder in the 400-meter race, and while recently competing in Switzerland and Paris, he broke the world record 3 consecutive times, moving the record from 48.65 seconds to 48.07 seconds. This past June 9th, after setting the 400-meter world record for a second time and racing a difficult 800-meter, Austin set a new personal best and went under 15 seconds for the first time in the 100-meter race. On the morning of June 14th, Austin broke the 800-meter world record with a time of 1 minute, 35 seconds, and 59 milliseconds. And that afternoon, he set a new 400-meter world record of 48.06 seconds. After a commanding win in his first race of the series, I asked Austin how proud of himself he must be and what he's going to do to celebrate. Still, with more races to be conquered the next day, Austin said that while he was proud of himself, there was still more room for growth. And keep in mind, this was said just before he set his next record in the 400 meter the following morning. He went on to quote Kobe Bryant after winning the playoffs, "Job not done." Austin added, "I'd like to echo that standard of commitment to focused execution until I'm back on the practice track." I asked Austin if he could tell us more about what was going on for him emotionally and physically during those pivotal few days.
Yeah, so I have my notebook so I can
Awesome.
go back and get right into what was going on and how I was feeling. Thursday was the 800 meter, and the format for the first competition worked in a way that they had the 800 meter first, and then the next day it was the 400 meter, and the following day was the 100 meter. And I knew that this was going to be a fantastic opportunity to practice championship racing and mental execution, because all too often we have a track meet and it's like you show up, you do your warm up, you do your race, you go home, and you're back to training. But when you're at these higher level meets and they do spread out the competition, it's really important to maintain focus on your physical energy levels as well as your mental energy levels. And I like to visualize that there is a mental energy tank that is a very real thing, and there is a physical energy tank that is also a real thing. And by the time I finished the competition, not just the race, that would be an appropriate time to be tired and out of gas. So going in on the Thursday, I knew that, okay, I feel fantastic. I'm going to race well. This is everything. It's a good track. The weather's set up well. And the biggest thing that I needed to focus on for the first event was that I didn't want to go out too strong and then end up using too much of that physical or mental energy in the first day, in the first event.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out and made the decision to win the race, but to also do that in a way that didn't come at too much of a cost physically, knowing that I had the next race the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can see in my notes here that I had a commanding win from the front. I had used excellent preparation, focus, control, and that I was emotionally dialed. My coaching comments were, and the feedback, this is an important piece that we'll touch on later, but feedback from my coach was that I did a really good job staying calm, not building tension, and I maintained a very good sense of presence and relaxed body language.
Mm.
So faster that I moved on and got back to resting for the next race, the better the next race result would possibly be.
Right.
On the Friday morning, I woke up and thought, okay, yesterday was yesterday. It was an 800-meter race, a middle distance race. Now I have a sprint. It's in T minus 3 hours, and I'm going to eat what I need to eat in order to be fueled adequately for this race without being overfueled.
Mm-hmm.
So I went for a bunch of simple sugar carbs, otherwise known as croissants, and then I had a couple hard-boiled eggs, which is protein, and that helps to slow down the digestion of the carbs. So the carbs are my simple go fast sugar. I need that glucose to innervate my muscles, and I need the protein just to make sure that it lasts a little bit longer. So intentionally ate in the morning, had a really good warm up, and then went out and raced a new world record in the 400 meter. So that was a very exciting time as well, but it was also very anticipated. I say it's anticipated primarily because the way I've been feeling physically, I knew that this was going down. I'm going around the track in 49 seconds. I can certainly try and take off almost half a second at the speeds that I'm going in practice and the way that I feel currently. So that was a really fun time, and it was really good to execute with that result. But yet, I still finished that race with the next one in mind. It's almost like I was watching the whole game, the whole competition, the whole series from a bird's eye view mentally to make sure that, okay, we're going to get this play perfect, but we're not going to cost too much energy and have that come at the sacrifice of the next race. So that I'll be able to then go out and do the next one is fantastic. So one of my coaching feedbacks that I got after the 400 was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, you just set a world record. Oh my gosh. Everybody was so excited. And I was like, I'm proud of it, but I think that this is a really good opportunity to use this level of excitement as a training opportunity for moderating the mental energy tank.
Right.
And I said that immediately, and it was the first thing on my mind because one of the things that I've spoke with about my sports psychologist is it's so difficult to replicate the hype that happens at a major competition like the Paralympics and the Olympic Games.
Mm-hmm.
You have family that's excited. You have people that are texting you. You have people you haven't heard from in forever who are seeing that you're on CBC Sports. And if you have your phone on, like you can stay up all night and get lost in the hype and then be wiped the next day. So we actually do with the Canadian Olympic and Paralympic team, we do what's called a media blackout, which is part of their strategy to ensure nobody is on their phone all night, getting lost and sucked into the excitement. But it's also very easy to get lost in your own excitement.
Right.
And I think most people have experienced this. I think it's, you have the big job interview the next day and your heart's beating out of your chest and you're lying in bed trying to fall asleep, but you can't because you're so excited. You're already running your adrenaline system. You're like, oh my goodness, what if I make this mistake? What if I don't get the job? What if it goes well, but I make a few mistakes? All of a sudden, you're using so much of your mental energy at a time that you don't need it.
Mm.
And you're running that tank dry, that mental energy tank. That's a really good time for anybody, whether you're getting ready for a world championship final or an Olympic final or the job interview, to recognize, okay, you're going to use some breathing techniques and control what we know in the high performance and in the medical world as our parasympathetic nervous system. So we can, exhale slowly, and that tells our body that we're at ease. There's no real reason that we should be going through autonomic arousal, which is otherwise known as stress.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't be stressed. We shouldn't be using this mental energy and being in this state of fight, flight, or freeze. We should be relaxing and preparing to use that energy when it's needed. My coaches were all very excited to hear me say that. They were like, holy crap, he's dialed in right now. Like this is what people write about as the athlete in the zone. And I think they saw that and thought it was pretty cool to realize that we're currently at that point. I'm elevating my game in a mental way that's going to allow me to execute at a higher physical level later. And they've seen that from me before, but to see somebody go into that zone at a Grand Prix event when there's really nothing on the line, they were like, oh wow, he's really in. He's like fully in on the preparations for Paralympics, but also for tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. Yes, being proud for the results I just produced and being excited about, being the new world record holder and being faster than anyone else has ever been before in a wheelchair going around the track. That's pretty cool, especially when you're putting years of your life towards that. But it was also a really good learning opportunity. And when we wake up in the morning and the staff or the other athletes say, like, you excited for today? Are you excited for the races? And I'm like, yeah, like another day, another opportunity. Like, let's not just let this be a day. Let's let this be an opportunity to not only perform at the highest level that we're capable of, but also influence that opportunity to come to fruition and provide incredible results. So it's been a really fun trip so far being over here. And I think that like my teammates have noticed as well. And my staff certainly, or the staff of the national team has certainly noticed and picked up on it. And everyone is, like a rise in the tide raises all ships. So then we have the national team group chat that's going off, and it's really cool to see. But we literally had, I'm going to shout this out on the podcast because it's that cool. So we had a girl named Amanda. She ran a PB on Thursday night. Then Katie threw shot put Thursday afternoon and got a new personal best. And then Cody, who's a wheelchair racing athlete, he did a 200-meter personal best. Then I set the 400-meter world record Friday morning. I raced another one, had another personal best, another wheelchair racer personal best, another wheelchair racer personal best, and then another wheelchair racer personal best. And we just have all of these athletes that are not even all in Switzerland here right now, but they're all seeing, okay, someone's dialed in and locked in and hitting personal bests. And I think everybody else is like, okay, what do I need to do that tomorrow? Because we're all in a very high importance portion of our season right now where we need to go fast and show not only the Canadian selection committee that we are in great form, but we also need to be readying ourselves with less than 100 days to the Paralympics.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. That's an understatement for sure. It's pretty cool. Yeah. And you had said something to me that stood out over text. I had the pleasure of getting some screen time with Austin in between his races. And you'd said that your coaches had said you had a master class in emotional control. And I love that. That so stood out to me. So we can hear in everything you're sharing that that's what that looks like. That's what that master class in emotional control looks like, being dialed in. And when you say you were watching the races as if you were from above looking down, like what a perfect application of mindfulness, right? You're so in the zone and also manifesting exactly what you wanted by application, by modulating your nervous system with the excitement of the win, right? Knowing like I'm going to be excited, but not so excited that I let social media drain all my energy before the next day. So that's cool that they do that as well. The social media blackout makes sense.
Yeah, the world that we're in right now with social media is, an entire podcast on itself could go towards discussing that. But what we do as pinnacle performers of our sport and masters of our craft is make decisions on whether or not the next action is going to make you faster and if it's going to be a net positive experience. So spending time on social media doesn't make you any faster.
Yeah.
And all I want to do, if I'm honest about my goal for the year, is be faster, get the best results I can. I honestly have opened up Instagram to post about the fact that I'm recently engaged. That's exciting. That's worth opening it up and posting for and sharing with all the family and friends.
Absolutely.
But otherwise, I've been offline.
Yeah, that's definitely the definition of letting go of what's not serving your purpose, because your purpose right now is so defined, so distinct. But everyone can work to do that, right? To let go of things that don't serve them. So it's great that you have a team around you who supports that and can recognize the direct lack of correlation between social media and your speed on the track.
Totally.
So, in your opinion, Austin, what does it mean to be an Olympic athlete, an elite athlete?
Being an elite performer is to understand the human machine. And I've thought about this a lot leading up to the podcast. I think that it's understanding that you cannot just do this by going to the gym and getting fit and being strong. You also need to be strong between the ears. And that applies to doing anything well in life. Is in order to grow, we need to know that there are things that slow us down and things that speed us up. One of the biggest parts of being a high level performer in anything is going to be nutrition. What do you eat, breathe, drink, absorb? What do you think about? What do you act on? And then to go even further in nutrition, I think that sleep is a huge part of nutrition. It's where we do our growing. You can ask anybody who's tried to get stronger in the gym, and there's thousands of podcasts and YouTube channels on bodybuilding, and they'll tell you that you cannot put on muscle if you don't sleep, and you cannot put on muscle if you don't eat. The key to it all is consistency as well. So if my desired identity is to be someone who completes and succeeds at this goal, well, then you need to find out which actions and thoughts are going to cast votes in the direction that put you closer to that goal. And that's all just about, priority management. What am I willing to give up to get where I want to go? What is my goal? And a big part of goal setting is ultimately honesty and honesty with yourself, focusing on me, 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 and me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's selfish, but if you want to get somewhere really fast, how many things do you want to carry that aren't going to help you or serve you? And that applies to your physical world, your mental world, your emotional world.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Letting go of the unnecessary baggage. And in your case, it literally slows you down. And so to know what to let go of. And I like that, what do you need to focus on? Me, 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 and me. And sure, it could sound selfish, but also, what you're doing is not hurting anyone, right? So I look at selfishness as being disruptive to other people, right? Or being self-centered or self-serving. And you're not hurting anyone, right? You'd only be hurting yourself if you weren't putting yourself first right now. So I think that's an amazing mindset to have because you're not bulldozing over people. You're just conquering your goals.
totally. So I'm a huge fan of your podcast and part of Blue Zone Living, the ability to continue trying new things and to approach it with a, of course I can attitude. That related so well with what I'm currently doing is, a coach gives you a workout that you've never done before. And it's like, sorry, I'm gonna do what? That sounds crazy. But if you approach it with, of course I can, then you end up making it through that first time and you go, wow, I did that. And
Mm,
then you make it better the next time, approaching things with a positive attitude and knowing that without a doubt in your mind, if you don't succeed the first time, it's not failure,
mhm.
it's just learning. It's an opportunity to grow. So, one of my other favorite things that I have written down is it's win or grow. If you're willing to put yourself in that position and take a risk on yourself, then it's not really a risk because you don't have anything to lose.
Right.
You're just gonna do it better next time. And if you're gonna agree with yourself that you're not gonna stop until you get the results that you want, then there is no failure. It's just
Mhm.
all part of the journey.
Yeah, that's so true. Win or learn. I really like that. And that's awesome that you referenced that. Of course I can mindset because that's exactly what you described earlier in the episode on how you approached every race. It's like you already saw yourself winning. So it's almost like you practice visualization there of I see that happening and I know it's going to happen. Like you were proud of yourself, but as you said you were also kind of anticipating that would happen because you saw it happening.
Totally. So one of the things I do when I get on the track is forget about the plan. You got to know that you have a plan, but you got to be able to adapt if it doesn't start going that way as well.
Right.
So you don't want to be waiting for an opportunity that never comes. You want to be able to react and to be able to adapt. So when
Mm.
I get on the track, I go, okay, let's get here right now. Our brains filter out so much noise. So you don't notice the clothes that are on your body after 5 seconds of wearing them. You can also really bring yourself to a place of presence, and it's called grounding. And I'm sure some people have heard of this. Doesn't mean you're going out and touching grass necessarily, but it means that you are acknowledging that you're touching grass
Mm.
and saying, okay, what does it smell like right now? Where am I? Find some red things. Okay, bam, bam, bam. Find some green things. Bam, bam, bam. You never saw the yellow things until you tell yourself, let's find the yellow things. And
Mhm.
then you can begin to say, okay, I am here right now. The million little organisms that make up who I am are going to do what we can do right now.
So, Austin and I have made a bit of a habit of sharing inspirational mind over matter quotes with each other over the past year. So, I thought I'd ask him to share some of his favorites with us today. One of my personal favorites of Austin's was when the mind says no, but the body says, fuck yeah, let's go. He said that in a video to me, and I quoted it back to him, and he was like, did I say that? That sounds good. So, I wrote it down. Austin, are there any quotes that really have stuck out to you over recent months as you've elevated your performance to new heights?
For sure, there are many. One of my favorites is that smooth seas never made a skilled sailor. Embrace the fact that anything that's difficult now, if you have the right mindset, will only serve you better later. A book by Tim Grover, who's the coach of Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, he says, winning is the ultimate gamble on yourself. That resonates as well because you have to be willing to take a risk on yourself and take a chance because I could go to the Paralympics and I could win, but I might not. But that's a chance that I'm willing to take. Another great quote that I love is to know and not to do is in fact to not know. So I think that that's really relevant in the sense that if you know how to improve something, but you're not being, goes back to the honesty piece, not actually follow through on what you say you're going to do, then it's the same as not doing it.
And it's so true because there's so much information out there, right? There's lots of ways in which we can know things, but to actually do the things, to act on what we know is a whole other type of strength to know that you want to follow through on that knowledge.
100%. I moved across the country to be better immersed in just doing one thing and being able to just put your head down and do what you say you're going to. I was lying to myself for many years about the fact that I'm doing the work and like I'm working hard enough, and then was displeased with the results that I was getting when I inherently knew something was wrong with the fact that a high school swim team was putting in more hours in the pool and in the gym than I was.
Mm.
And it's like I would show up and do the work, but I wasn't finding that limit where I was like, hey, I need to just get one more rep or one more minute or one more second or push the rims of the wheelchair one more time. And then I came out to Victoria and joined this incredible high level training group that's literally run by all former Olympic athletes themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to push the needle on this. We're going to really go for it. If you think this is going to be easy, then you're out of your mind. Like, there's no way you can just show up and do this. It's going to take everything you have. But if you give it everything you have, it will give you more in return.
I love that. Yeah, and you can so see a shift in the way you approach the sport and just life since you've moved out to BC.
It's been great. It really has. One of the most simple portions of growth by being out of the house is I wasn't eating what mom and dad were cooking. I was doing my own groceries, but through the process of that, I was thinking, okay, what do I need to eat to support what I need to do tomorrow?
Mm.
And food is literally fuel for us. You become an intentional consumer of the things that are going to help you advance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no sweets in the house because it's not going to help.
Mm-hmm. Making the new habits desirable and the old habits unattractive. So it sounds like when you saw behind the curtain on like what you can do to improve your performance, you don't even really want to buy the cookies because you're like, oh, well, that's the same with the social media. That's not going to help you go faster. So you don't really enjoy it as much, I'm sure, especially in this time period. You'd probably just look at them and be able to glaze over them.
For sure. It's like anything, you decide you want it and you go for it. If you grant yourself permission to fail and you're willing to bet on yourself, you can't win if you don't place a bet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you literally cannot win if you don't place a bet. And you can even do better. This isn't a casino. You can actually control the odds of the outcome by working on the things that are going to put you closer to your goals.
Mm-hmm. What you just said there is exactly the definition of manifesting. I feel like sometimes people hear the term manifesting and they think it's like woo woo and they don't actually take any steps to get there. They just say that they hope it happens. But manifesting is putting in the steps, like putting in the effort, taking the actions to get to where you want to go. You can't just dream it. You have to actually do it.
And like whoever said good things come to those who wait, they need to shake their head huge because good things come to those who work.
Yeah.
Like,
that's like your tattoo, right?
Tattoo says
Yeah.
desire, dream, do.
Yeah.
To me, it literally just means that, yeah, you decide you want something, you dream it big, and then you actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. That's the most important part is actually doing it. Being out 3,000 something kilometers away from your family, in my case, might be considered a sacrifice to some people, but it's not. It's
Mm-hmm.
the decision that it's going to help me, and I don't look back and I don't second guess it. That a sacrifice is something there's regret for.
Yeah.
And I have no regret for being where I am and doing the things I'm doing. And to that point, I think that when you are honest with yourself and you remove the emotion from your decision-making process, then you act and you repeat, you figure it out. And that just helps build confidence that whatever challenge you're going to approach is one that you're going to be successful at overcoming.
Mm-hmm. And that's a huge part of it, I'm sure, is knowing that in order to shoot the shot at the hardest thing you think you could do, or maybe you even doubt if you could do it. And then to do it, cast that vote that you're that guy that can do it. And then all of a sudden you're that guy.
Yeah. I think a couple of really good quotes are, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct. Another one is, hope is a currency which purchases you optimism about your current situation.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that improvement will come is very intoxicating and really does purchase you optimism to continue on. And even if it's failure at the first attempt at something, hope that you'll be successful in the future will allow you to keep on moving towards that eventual goal.
That's awesome. I call that the upward spiral. If we talk about like downward spiral, and with my clients, I say like, oh, you're in the upward spiral right now, which is you do one thing that feels good and you're like, oh, I want to do this thing. And then I want to do this thing and this thing. And all of a sudden you find yourself way the hell up in the clouds.
Totally. And if you want to get to the top of anything that you're doing, step up. Otherwise, you probably got to step aside because someone else is going to do it too.
Step up or step aside.
For sure. The only thing that makes the opposite of success a failure is you deciding that it's over.
Mm.
You decide it's over, time ran out, I failed. But if you tried, time ran out, and you learned from it and you're going to get it next time, it's not necessarily losing. It's just part of the process. And be happy you're still moving forward. And, you get to decide what your next opportunity is quite often by the actions that you put in today.
Absolutely. It takes the pressure off, I'm sure, in some ways to just come to terms with quote unquote failure by not making that part of your identity. It's just part of the process. And as you know and are experiencing now, everyone who has got to those high level performance states has had times where they weren't happy with their performance, because you have to struggle to get to where you are now.
Yeah, like in sports, you spend most of your time not winning.
Mm-hmm.
Look at golf. I mean, how often do you end up winning back to back to back? It's almost impossible. But it doesn't mean that you're not in the game and one of the best in the world and finding new ways to succeed. Yeah, it's all a mindset for sure.
Yeah, I like what you say about failure being tied to finality, that if it's not the end, then how can it be failure? It's just part of the learning process. That's great.
So you learn faster through your failures than you do success. It's not the only way to learn through failure. You can learn by doing a good job. You can learn that worked. Let's do that again. That was great.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I want to put a rocket in space, and you start like, I'm pretty sure this is going to work. Let's do it. You take a shot, it blows up. Oh my God, he just blew up like a couple $100 million worth of rocket parts and years of this and that. You know what? We learned so much more from how that didn't work than we did from waiting for years and years and years and years to then try. So then they put another one up in the air that also blows up. Oh my gosh. But they learned again what didn't work. If you try something and it's not right for you, okay, cool. You don't have to go down that path, but at least notice the thing that you tripped on. Or if you're going down a path, let's use a hiking analogy, and you trip, the smartest person is going to be like, why did I trip? Oh, okay, my shoe's untied. Mm-hmm. They're going to fix it. And the dumbest person is going to get up again and be like, I can't believe I fell. And they're going to keep hiking and they're going to trip again. And eventually they're going to have another problem because they just broke their wrist or they twisted their ankle. No, falling isn't failing. It's part of the hike. And if you're okay with that, then just find out why you fell, fix it, don't do it again, be smart, and keep going.
I love that. Yeah, tie the shoelace. That's all that matters.
Tie your shoes.
That's awesome. So you've kind of answered it, Austin, in some of these metaphors and quotes, but what are some tangible things that listeners can do to embody the essence of an Olympic athlete?
Make decisions and act on them. The action portion is huge. We love gratification as a species. We feel good when we check things off of our to-do list.
Yeah.
So, of course, making a to-do list is an important part of moving in the right direction of getting things done. But if all you're doing is making lists and not getting things done, then you're not getting anything done and you're not going anywhere. You're sitting down writing in a book. So I think you need to get up and get stuff done, get shit done. And then also set up your environment for success. That's discussed also in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, when he's discussing how to make things that you want to do versus you don't want to do. Okay, remove the temptation. That can also go so much further. If you know that you're going to need to eat after a workout, make your sandwich before the night before. That's not saying that like the whole process of becoming an Olympic athlete is about making your sandwich the night before. It's about thinking one step ahead for yourself so that you can make the next thing and the next day more streamlined. And if you're going to be something, be efficient. You may as well. It's only going to help you.
Yeah, work smart, not hard.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder. And one of the things that I do is a standard that's written down in my book of what am I going to do is train today and prepare for tomorrow. And the key routines that are going to support that is maintain fluid and food saturation and maintain sleep saturation. Everything we do comes between the ears. You don't hit a golf ball by just like not having a nervous system. You need to think about it before you do it, and then you translate it into results.
Yeah, I love how all this really highlights the mind-body connectedness, which I've emphasized so much lately.
That is literally it. The elite athlete mind body is turning thoughts into actions. That is awesome. Literally it.
Mic drop there. That's perfect. Well, thank you so much, Austin, for joining us all the way from Paris now. He was in Switzerland, traveling all over, and still a few more stops to go, right? Can you share with us where else you'll be before you head home?
Yes, I will be competing here in Paris in the Paris World Para Athletics Grand Prix. And then after that, I will be heading to Finland, where I'll compete in a couple high-level able-bodied track meets that are having some really good wheelchair racing events as well. And finishing my tour off by competing at the Canadian Olympic and Paralympic Trials in Montreal, Quebec.
Amazing. And I have the pleasure of seeing that. I'm going to be visiting Austin in Montreal, so that'll be such an amazing experience.
Super exciting.
Thank you so much for being here, Austin. I can't wait to continue to see what else this year has in store for you, especially with the Paralympics this fall.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, it's always appreciated for you to follow Mind the Gaps on your podcast streaming platform and to share it with your friends and family. To stay up to date on the show, you can find me on Instagram at kirsten.davidson. Thanks for minding the gaps with me today. I'll see you next time on the journey out of our comfort zone and into our growth zone.